thank you for tuning in to the Cube Radio. In today's episode, we're going to talk to veteran cube designer Slowercar about the past, present, and future of the Slowercube. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So, Slowercar. I wanted to start this interview asking about your Pokemon career. Like, when did you start playing the game? Or when did you come back? Because I know the people that started a while back, they always come and go. And eventually, when did you find out about the Cube?
Yeah, so I started back in 2005, 2006-ish. Basically started out just with some cards my mom got from a yard sale. So I had a bunch of like early EX era and like some Gen 2 stuff in there. And I just started like playing, not really knowing how to play, playing with my sister. That was about what started happening at the beginning. Then I guess after that I found Poke Beach, and then that kind of moved on. I realized, oh, there's like actual tournaments. So then there was a league about 30 miles away that I got to go to probably about once a month because it was a bit of a drive and my parents had to drive me. But that's kind of where I started out. Like some of my favorite Pokemon cards are ones that I got in that box of cards that I got from the thing all the way back then. So I played till about 2008, 2009. 2009 was when I kind of stopped because I just got busy with other things and didn't have time to go to the league as much. And then a few years later I came back in 2011 just in time for Gen 5, just right before Gen 5 came out, and got to have fun for a little while until until the big EXs showed up.
Yeah.
I remember seeing when they printed Catcher, and it's like, what are they doing?
Yeah, as someone I pretty much had the same ways of starting the game as you. So yeah, I was, when I first knew about the reprint of Gust of Wind is what we called back then.
Yeah.
Because I think we didn't have the English name. Yeah, that sucked for everyone.
Yep, yeah. So after that happened, I kind of like stopped playing because also I was like applying to college and everything, so that was a busy time. So yeah, I just kind of skipped most of Gen 5, and I guess I didn't come back again until 2017. Whenever I was partway through college, I had a co-op in St. Louis, so I met back up with a bunch of people from Yeti, which I had gone there for tournaments back whenever I was younger. So that was a lot of fun. That got me back into the game. So I played, and I enjoyed that. Like the format then was pretty good. Sun and Moon was about to come out. I actually really loved the Sun and Moon era, and I kind of got back to some of the good parts of Gen 3, at least pre-tag team. But yeah, it was a good time. I loved that Gardevoir was a deck, and I played like Metagross then. That was a good time. Then I've been pretty much, other than skipping tag teams, I've been playing since. Right around that time was also when I got introduced into Cube right after I graduated college. It was kind of becoming a thing for, I don't remember whose Cube I played first during that time. I think early in 2017, I actually got introduced to it by Alex Koch, because everybody's like, oh yeah, this is the Cube guy, or it was U150 back then that he came up with. Basically, I got to play it at a regional, and then I think a little while after that, some of my friends in St. Louis were building cubes. I was like, oh well, maybe I'll try and build one. So that is my cube that I still have now. The Slowercube used to be Slowercar42 low power cube. I've just been tweaking that ever since then.
Yeah, it's really fun to see the origin story, because I'm not from your country. I'm from somewhere down in South America, and like I kind of saw all of those things happening over the internet. I also read the article from Alex Koch on PokeBeach. I think it is the Cube Root, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That was the way I found about Cube, and it's really funny that like he kind of created a Cube boom in the Yeti area in the 2017-2018. That was also when OmniPoke started making some big Cube videos and kind of sparking out.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, it sparked out a lot of interest over Cube, and then Legend Box was created on Facebook, and then like it was kind of a snowball after that, like kind of a very slow snowball after the Cube Root. It's very interesting to see like the local effects, but you sell your cube very short because the Slowercube, as it's known nowadays, is probably most people's first cube because it was played in the Cube League of April 2020. And if everyone remembers what was happening on the world, we were on the start of lockdown. Everyone was home. There was no reason not to cube. The organizers, especially Connor, Slight, were pushing for Cube League, and your cube was the first Cube League that we played in the current format of season and cycles, and that end on Gems Cubes. And ever since that cube happened, that Cube League, cube has never been the same. It has been like the absolute burst of popularity in our very close-knit grassroots community. The Slowercube is in the forefront of that. Yeah, don't sell your cube short, because the Slowercube is a instant classic in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, I think that Gen 3 is a really good generation to have cards for Cube, because there were so many like just interesting cards that had complex interactions. And especially if you kind of like cut out insanely powerful cards that kind of took the meta by storm at the time, then there's a lot of like tier 2 or 3 cards that can really like work well against each other, and really just kind of like you can come up with some really interesting combinations in Cube, which was kind of what I wanted to build a deck with Aggron, Lifesplosion Cradley, and Armaldo EX. Those were the 3 Pokemon that I was like, okay. Oh, and Gardevoir EX, because that is also one of my favorite Pokemon. So those were like the starters for like what I wanted the cube to have in it. And then I just kind of went from there. My process was I worked very hard to try to like match up power levels of all the cards, making sure that like the attacks were all good, didn't have like something insanely overpowered, although there's always ones that got through. Everybody always thinks it's pretty funny. My method for picking pre-evolutions was which one has the most text. Which
Really?
some people are not a fan of, because it does require more reading. If you haven't seen the cube before.
I mean, it does make sense. You want every card in your cube to be kind of special in its own way. So, and you kind of also want to showcase the entire history of the game. And Slowercar42 or Slowercube, it uses so many cards from so many different eras. It's mostly Gen 3, but of course, it has all of the supporters. It has so many of the old busted trainers that every player wants to see, like the computer search and the item finder played. It's the first card that they always ask. I guess they ask about Gust of Wind and energy removal, but we have to like kind of say no. Not those. Calm down.
That's the line I won't cross. Is Gust without any like precursors. Like if you can just gust something up for no payment, then that's not really balanced.
It is not.
One thing that's kind of interesting, a lot of the lines that I started out with, almost all the lines that I started out with in general, are still the same ones that I have in the cube today. Because I think like the base, at least for like the overall structure of the cube, has held the test of time for the most part. There have been some notable changes though. in the original version of my cube, I ran Blastoise as my water stage too.
Wow.
Which was a little bit good because it had both the B and the L from LBS. So
my.
Lugia was a little bit overpowered with Blastoise, and just kind of, it was definitely the best line at the time. So I put in instead Walrein, which I have always liked Walrein as a Pokemon, and it has some really interesting cards. It has a little bit more balanced energy acceleration with Crush Draw. Just get to add one energy in turn, not as many as you want. I think that definitely helped. But yeah, most of those changes had happened by the time 2020 first Champs Cube happened. So actually, there's up until probably last week, all of the evolution lines in the cube have been the same since that Champs Cube in 2020.
Wow.
Which is actually, I just now realized that, and that's kind of interesting.
That is impressive.
Changes have happened. I've swapped out a Pokemon or two here or there. Definitely changed some of the supporter line, because I definitely think the trainers were the one of the weaker areas that I didn't put quite as much thought into at the beginning. I started off with just using a friend's trainer line from their cube and pasting it into mine and then making some tweaks. Whereas with the Pokemon, I was like, okay, I just have to look up every single grass type and like figure out exactly what that needs to be. But yeah, no, that was thought that was pretty.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There are cubes that are way newer than Slowercube, and they have changed so much in so little time. And you are right, now that I look at the cube, it kind of looks the same as it ever was, except for some specific cards, like the Gardevoir from Secret Wonders, of course. That card, we'll probably never see that card in a mid-ish, lowish power cube ever again, because that one's
definitely does not belong there.
Nope, never again. And some others, but like overall the cube is pretty much the same, and that's really interesting to know that Blastoise was in here. It's funny to talk to people nowadays that like we have so much cube content, and overall we have thought and made so many cubes, so newer cube designers don't have to fall into the same traps that we used to fall in the past.
Yeah,
we didn't know better. We just put broken cards in cubes and assumed it would be fine. In my cube, I remember vividly when I used energy removal and then item finder for energy removal, and my friend was like, no, that's not cool. You need to change that. That's not fun at all.
Yeah, which I'm trying to remember, when exactly, when did you first build RSPK? I don't remember it being there whenever I was building my cube, or at least I wasn't aware of it, because I was like, oh, nobody's really done a Gen 3 cube on the server yet, or in my group that I knew about, so I should do that.
So, your cube is pre-pandemic, right? Your cube is from
the
2019 times.
So it was I originally started building it like mid to end of 2018.
Okay. So like I usually tend to make eras of cube. There's this era of like pre-cube boom, like the pre-2018 era. And your cube is one of the very few cubes of that I know of that era. I know that some people played it, but like we don't have lists, or they just don't play anymore. But your cube is so old in comparison on like all of the others, because RSPK is a pandemic cube. The first test run for RSPK is July 2020, so 2 years younger than Slowercar. I did have another one, but it was not like a Gen 3 cube, but it used a lot of Gen 4, 3, etc. Very unlimited.
I didn't really have much of a reference what lines actually worked in cube initially. So they're like, other than the Blastoise, it started out with Typhlosion, which I had Typhlosion Prime in there at first. And,
God.
That was also a little bit much, but then without it, the line was kind of bad. So thus Blaziken. I think Blaziken is a better line overall. And
so iconic as well, right, for Gen 3. Even if they kind of suck, like Blaziken EX from Crystal Guardians. Not the best card, but it's good. It plays decent.
Yeah, it's got like the drag off, and then the I mean, it can hit through anything for 100 damage. It might just hit itself back a little.
Yeah, no weakness as well. No weakness to the main line. A different weakness, I should say. Also
Nice.
really decent. Also hits some different weaknesses. Just like a great card to have in a Blaziken line of this power level.
I guess I had already had the cube for a year and a half, so just because it was one of the early ones, I definitely got to fix a lot of the kinks through it at the time. At that point, that was pretty good. There's definitely some things looking at the list of what was in the cube now that I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I've removed those cards now, like Lux Regia level X.
Oh yeah.
Why was that in there?
I remember that. Yeah, like again, we didn't we literally didn't know any better. We could not know the consequences of our actions. We were just putting funny cards in cubes, and eventually we're like, oh god, no, please don't.
Now people are all a bunch of people are like, oh, we have to optimize the balance of the cube, and I was like, I was trying to do that, but I was also just trying to make it like fun at the time as well, and I still think it strikes a good balance between not having anything too broken while having things that are broken enough to make it fun.
Yeah. For the server itself, when we want to play cubes for Cube League, we just want balance. We're not looking at other things as importantly as we're looking at balance. When you're making an IRL cube, the one which you play with your friends, you play best of one. Some of your friends don't really care when they're drafting. They're just drafting like their favorite lines and cards and are going to play wacky decks that don't make a lot of sense. You want to optimize the fun. And your cube is definitely thought about the fun aspect. You can like put a focus band, put some broken trainers and some broken Pokemon. Like Lugia EX with an Eviolite. If
yes, although I have since removed the Eviolite.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was a little bit overpowered if you put an Eviolite on a Delta Metal Deoxys,
yes,
with 4 special metal energy on it, and now you're reducing by 90 damage a turn.
Yeah, your opponent just never does anything. Oh my god. Yeah, your opponent never does anything at that point. But it is really interesting to see the history of such an old cube, like kind of growing into the present. And I want to kind of go back into the topic of the trainer line, because the only kind of criticism I had of the cube in the past, it was sometimes you had to like use less special or like rival. Some cards like just suck so much. I remember, I think it was on a team's run, I had to play a Ilima. I gave my opponent 6 cards, drew 3, and then I was like, I'm done. Goodbye. Not ever playing that card again. Newer and better cards came out, so we have like the Miriams and the Ionos that hasn't come out, but probably going to go straight into the cube, right? A lot of just very good cards from the late Sun and Moon, the Sword and Shield eras, and now Scarlet Violet. And then also you just changed some of the Sakier supporters.
Which actually the update that I did a couple of weeks ago, which I guess I did the rebranding or whatever the Slowercube. That I went in and really dug through the trainer line a lot, updated things. Originally I was very focused on like making things singleton. Yeah. But I realized like sometimes you have to bend the rules a little bit for
absolutely.
For fun. So like I added in thicker lines of the Holon trainers, so I could actually like have Holon Transceiver in my cube, because like when are you gonna have a Gen 3 cube without Holon Transceiver?
Absolutely. Yes, I agree 100%.
I did take out Lass and Rival, although I did make an exception. Mysterious Player gets a free Rival when they draft my cube now.
Yeah, they complain. They play a 61 card deck with a Rival every time, and then they can cry on their mistakes, of course, because that's not a card you should be playing in any cube. But I agree that is a very like common sentiment, that people want to do singleton, and I think singleton Pokemon is a very good way to make a cube. And you can make some exceptions, like the Holland Pokemon. Sometimes you want to have more of them, or if you have a very important card you need like 2 or 3 of, you can absolutely break singleton for those. But for trainers, singleton doesn't work too well, because there is a very distinct power level difference in the trainer line. You have to play your Professor Oak's Research and your Professor Oak's New Theory in the same deck, like shuffle, draw 5, shuffle, draw 6. And that's just something that happens, and you have to accept it. But even then, you should play with extra admins, extra Steven's Advice, extra Roseanne's Research, like just cards that are good for everyone. Nobody's gonna be like, oh no, they broke singleton. Like, people want to use their Holland Transceivers for Holland Mentor in multiple decks, in multiple drafts. So I agree with that 100%. Something that the modern cube thought experiment or design philosophies give us is just think about your trainers a lot, because they make a hell of a difference on the gameplay. And again, you want to maximize fun, so don't use junk arm on energy removal. Don't play your energy removals. But at the same time, like, let people do their stuff. Let them computer search. Play their very strong supporters. Your cube has some very good supporters for the power level, but I think that's a very important part of it. And even if it would be more balanced without like Kukui or Pokemon Center Lady, or did you remove the Center Lady?
So I replaced the Pokemon Center Lady with Pokemon Nurse.
So
I felt like that was a little bit better of a balance there.
Yeah, and even then, Pokemon Nurse is still a very strong card in like the specific deck. I think your specific cube, like Slowercube, has a type of gameplay that like you need to know that those cards exist and they're in the cube, and play around them or play towards them in the draft. Maybe if you have like a very strong 1 energy attacker, you really want that Nurse. Your cube is better off having those cards and being different. Like Expert Belt is another example of something we would not usually put on low power, but it doesn't matter here. It's in the cube. Just you have to take it. Basically,
it works just fine. If you end up, the last time I drafted, I actually ended up kind of accidentally building Sable Donk.
Oh no.
I wasn't trying, I just got the Sableye and then started it every game, and sometimes got an Expert Belt and a Special Dark in turn 1. I didn't ever donk though, so it's fine, it's balanced.
I think it was from Odysseus cube from Pokeverse. There's a hidden rule in this cube. If you donk someone, you're banned. You cannot play anymore. If you have the cards to donk, sure, cool. If you actually do it, goodbye, you're not playing anymore. And I actually had that in my cube like 2 weeks ago. A guy was playing the first time, he was like, can I donk? I'm like, sure, if you want to go out in a blaze of glory, donk and stop playing. And then he didn't, but he still won the game. So yeah, Sableye, very good Donkmon, and Expert Belt does some silly stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I think probably one of the bigger struggles that I've had with the balance in the cube is like reining in control, because that's always especially when I do put the more fun trainer cards in there, control can get a little out of hand. Which Delinquent was probably a bad choice to put in there initially, but
yeah, I agree with that. There's not a lot of fun 2 players can have with Delinquent in the cube.
No, yeah, you gotta still let your players play the game. So like one of my friends changed their Discord username to Nerf Control Caleb for a little while.
Oh my.
Which I have. It's better now. Always, I'm always gonna be tweaking some things a little bit. It's never really done. Yeah, I do like how it's kind of becoming my like old card collection now too, which is because I'm gradually getting more real cards in the cube.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite aspects of cube. Cube is basically a playable collection nowadays, because you're gonna play like a I don't know, Credilli EX, and people are gonna be like, what the hell, I've never seen that card. That random EX from Team Magma versus Team Aqua, they've never seen the card. You're playing like at an LGS, and people are like, what the hell are you playing? Why do you have like a Celebi Prime and I don't know, a Sketch Smeargle on the same deck. They're like 10 years apart. They make no sense. Cube is just like the best. It's actually the best format in the world because you can play with such an array of weird cards and make some cool combos. And every time I take the Cube to the LGS, and you probably do this too, someone is like, "What the hell are you doing? That's bananas."
It definitely is a lot of fun to like introduce new people to it too. Just people walking up. Like the last time I played it was during our like trading day at the LGS, so a good number of people came up and like kind of watched what we were doing for a bit, and maybe they'll join a future day.
Yeah, at least they know. The minimum is that they know what Cube is, and then you can play with bizarre cards that are old for them but are just real and nice and cozy for us. Like seeing a Gardevoir EX just makes my day.
Yep. Yeah, which that was one of the cards that I originally had back in my first box of cards, although the original one was I don't know where it is now, but the foil was mostly peeled off last time I saw it.
Oh god, yeah, the fate of all old cards that we were kids, dude. Don't feel bad.
I didn't know that sleeves existed for cards whenever I first got them. That was not a concept that I had thought about when back in 2005.
Yeah, no, I have a very vivid memory of going to like one of those school play things, and I spent the entire day with a Rocket Scissor EX, not Scissor, sorry, Sneasel EX, either in my hands or in my pocket. That card nowadays, it's so damn expensive. Like, I had to buy 4 for Drag Troll, and I just kind of killed one in my youth, not knowing any better. But again, that's the story of everyone that played with these cards back in the day. Like, we were kids. And nowadays, they are, like, some of our most precious, like, possessions. I would imagine that, like, sometimes people come to me and like, oh my god, I am like, I don't know, a Gardevoir EX collector. I would do everything for that one. How much do you want? I'm like, no. There's no amount of money you can give me to take this thing out of my hands. Like, this card is in my cube. It's been here for years, and like, it's gonna die in my hands. Get off.
Yeah, no, the really kind of sad thing from our perspective, I got back into Pokemon in 2017. Right before that, to pay for the down payment for my apartment that I was going to rent for my co-op internship just during the semester, I sold all of my Gen 3 and 4 cards except Delta Species Pokemon.
Oh god. At least you got the Delta Species, like those spiked in price really hard, so like it's not all that bad. It's probably bad enough to like not have a few good nights of sleep over that, but
I'm pretty sure I had at least 6 reverse hollow call energy.
No. Oh no, that hurts to hear. That really does. I mean, we didn't know any better. Like, who could have guessed that like a spike would come very soon, and like Cube would be a thing also soon enough.
Yep. Like 8 months after that, I was the people were starting to do Cube, and I was like, oh, I used to have a bunch of old cards.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a feeling that we all went through at some point, or probably will go through. And even like I imagine then we're gonna go through that for like Gen 5 and 6 cards in a few years. Like, I remember selling a shiny Dusknoir for a store for like very cheap because I was hyped about like Plasma Blast or some whatever bullshit new set was coming out at that day.
Yep. Well, yeah, because when I was a kid too, like, I didn't really collect the cards. I didn't have the money for that. I just I sold the cards that I didn't need anymore so I could get new cards.
Yeah. They get us. Worked. They get us in like a crazy loop of like, get card, be very excited about card, and then sell it for a new card. And nowadays that doesn't work anymore, because you're gonna look at like, I don't know, reverse hollow Hariyama from Delta Species and go like, this is better than anything from the last 5 years, maybe 15.
Yeah.
In my heart.
I still have I guess I do have one card from that original like set of cards. I have an Ancient Mew that
Oh,
was somehow in mint condition. It's not the rare one, it's the less rare one, but
I
it's
mean,
still like an ancient Mew.
it doesn't matter.
And
Yes.
yeah, somehow it survived all these years. Well, because I couldn't play with it, of course, so it just like sat. And it's still in really good shape. Like no visible damage to it, which I
Yeah.
was surprised by.
A shame that that card isn't like cube playable because nobody knows
Yeah.
what it does.
Well, so I guess technically you could make up whatever you want for the language and just say, yeah, it does.
Childhood cube. Your cards do whatever the hell you say they do.
Yes, it has 200 HP and does 100 damage for 2 psychic energy. That'll work great in Cube.
That's bad for standard, so it's probably good for cube.
It's been a good experience just building this up and maintaining it over the years.
Well, after a few years of Slowercube, we of course have a lot of events. We have Cube League, of course, a kind of a League Cup event, 5 rounds of Swizz, best of 3, then goes into a top cut. We have 2 of those, one in 2020, the inaugural Season 1, Cycle 1, first ever Cube League we've done, and we did it again in February 2022. It was loved again by a different crowd, some of the newer players. And it was also played one team showdown, I think that was July 2021. And of course, Champions Cube, the first ever Champions Cube I've ever played, kind of our big money tournament for Cube. Also with the Slowercube in August 2020, so your cube has been featured a lot. Again, kind of close to the Delta Mutant popularity level of people say Slowercube, they're like, yeah, let's do it. Don't care the time, don't care the place. just get me on a pod, I'll draft it.
Yeah, nice.
I guess we can go check some deck lists from the Champions Cube tournament, Champions Cube 1.
Still have them archived.
Yeah,
thank you, Google Docs.
Thank God we have those archived, because we had to dig a little deep today to find some of these, but thank God we were kind of organized back then. And that's of course before Cube Koga. Cube Koga is a 2021 thing, if I'm not mistaken, maybe late 2020. But of course, Champions Cube 1 and 2 were kind of very hard to run pre-Cube Koga, so thanks. I'm probably gonna thank Basketball every time an episode of this goes live, because that's just like
best pal is best pal.
Of course, our bestest of pals. So Champions Cube 1, it was won by a bananas deck list. If you look at the deck list for that, you have a lot of all-star hitters like Blaziken with Firestarter, Alolan Vulpix, the card that Chimerex said won the event for him, because everyone was kind of struggling to get their cards up, and he was just beacon until the board was set up. And with a board of a Blaziken with Firestarter, a Gardevoir with Telepass, a Energy Jump Gardevoir, and a backup Porygon 2, you're probably set for the entire game. You don't need much else, just some random attackers. You have Acceleration, Energy Jump, an extra supporter, Psychic Lock to lock your opponent's power. So that is a bananas deck list, and I think Gardevoir was quickly taken away after this tournament.
Yeah, I think it was shortly after this that I swapped out the Secret Wonders Gardevoir out of the cube, along with the second Firestarter Blaziken, so I cut it back to a single Firestarter Blaziken after this as well.
It used to be 2, that's true.
Yeah, I used to, because I was like, oh, maybe 2 could be good, because it could work in multiple decks, not just Blaziken. But then some people even got 2 Blaziken Firestarter in one deck, and that was a little much there.
Yeah, for this power level, having 2 accelerators from the discard is just bananas. And that deck also, it's not just the Pokemon line. It is a Professor Kukui, a computer search, a item finder, 2 rare candy. 2 rare candy on that list. How the hell?
2 rare candy. Oh man. Yeah, no, they really got to everything that they wanted for this, and because they were accelerating with Gardevoir and Firestarter Blaziken every turn, so I could just attach 3 energy a turn. like it was nothing.
Yeah, and just like Volcanic Ash if you need to, or like Psychic Rage, Black Magic. Like, there's so many good attacks. You have so many crazy cards that nowadays you wouldn't see. And that is just one of the lists, because like we had a lot of players at that event. I think it was 12, maybe?
Yes.
Was it
12?
2 pods of 6?
Yes. Yeah, it was 2 pods of 6.
Yikes. For nowadays, that would be kind of unacceptable, but again, we did not know any better. So, do you remember your deck from that event? Because you played it, right?
Yeah, so I of course actually drafted Aggron.
Your favorite
So
one?
I was playing. Yes, yeah, I was able to get. I played Aggron, Bronzong, Melodic.
Oh, wow.
So I was basically, it was Aggron with Bronzong to, like, Bronzong was my draw engine, and I had the like metal links to attach metal energy, and then I tried to have Melodic in there just to be a counter for fire weakness. And well, I even had a hard charm.
Oh, wow.
But I think the one weakness, I only got 1 special metal energy. But yeah, no, I think the deck drafted was pretty good. Oh, I take that back. I didn't have a draw Bronzong.
Oh.
I only had the metal links. So I think that was my biggest weakness there, was I did not have a good draw engine. Like, I had some good starters, but once I got started, I was just kind of had what I had, and that was my big weakness there. Although Aggron can be a very powerful line in the cube, especially with Crystal Guardians, Aggron EX, just shutting down all the basic Pokemon. Sadly, I ended up going a nice 0-2 in that tournament, losing to White Connor round 1, and then it looks like you actually lost to Connor round 2.
Yep, I do remember that. Connor's deck was really good on that event, and my deck was not. I remember drafting a fire deck. It was a Blaziken Bronzong deck, so we probably split the Bronzong. You got the acceleration, I got the draw. I remember my deck having very bad supporters. I could not set up for the life of me. I also didn't have any decent acceleration, because I think I only have 1 fire starter, and if I can't set up the fire starter, you can't accelerate. So I remember going a quick 1-2. I remember losing against Connor, and then losing against Joe. He was playing Salamence. He just absolutely bodied me. And again, this is like the Wild West of Cube. Something not from this tournament. I don't know if you remember this. This was from the first Cube League. I played you in one of my rounds. My deck from that league was very special to me. It was a triple lock deck. Medicham EX, Manectric EX, and Aggron EX. At some point, I would lock my opponent of doing something. I played you in one of the rounds. You were playing Blaziken, and my out to winning was sticking a Pichu, a Neo Genesis Pichu in the active, and you flipping 4 or 5 different tails, and you did.
Yes, I forgot. I remember that now. Yes, the original baby Pokemon were a little bit overpowered, because you always had to flip to attack them, and that really you could get really lucky with it, or you could get really unlucky with it.
Yeah, and that Pichu just had one of the most bonkers attacks in any basic Pokemon, doing 20 to each Pokemon with a power. And this cube has so much power. Like, you have so many powers and bodies. Just that's how Gen 3 Pokemon used to work. So that card was just ridiculously overpowered. And I remember also that set took like 3 hours, because the turns were long. You had to think about a lot. And then you introduce a baby flip. So you need kind of 2 strategies. What if I don't flip heads? What if I flip heads? What do I do? And I do remember the Pichu not sticking around for long after that game. You were not very stoked about it.
Yeah, it was really bad too, because since it was Gen 2, it was Pokemon powers still instead of Pokepowers and Pokebodies, I think, right?
Yes.
So it was it hit both Pokepowers and Pokebodies.
Yeah,
so you
absolutely.
basically just spread 20 to your whole opponent's field, and then they had to flip a heads to even attack it.
Yeah, that Pichu is another card that you're probably never gonna see in a low/mid power cube ever again. Yeah. If you have any sanity, at least.
I now have a Plusle in there that only, I don't remember which is which plus or minus, but they only hit Pokebowers or Pokebodies.
Yeah, the one from Deoxys.
And Yeah, and they don't, from Deoxys, and then you also, of course, don't have to flip to attack them, so they don't have quite as much staying power.
So, for the last few points, you made a pretty big update on your cube lately. We have some new sleeves to talk about, and maybe some of the changes, the future of Slowercube.
Yes, a rebranding, which was very much, I very much appreciate your work in creating the logo for the new sleeves.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That turned out amazing. I saw the I found the Aggron art online, and I was trying to figure out how to use a vector art software to try to make a logo, and then I just posted. It's I'm trying to do this, but I don't know exactly how to do it. And then in a couple hours, you just had it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm hoping that I get the rest of the sleeves this week, so I can sleeve up the cube, which they're the custom Dragon Shield sleeves. So hopefully they last a long time, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that is a power move that probably unseen in the cube world. Having custom sleeves for your own cube, it's usually hard enough to get a 800/1000 Dragon Shield set. Think about that customized, how good that would look. I cannot wait to see your cube in its full potential. The Aggron, very pretty Aggron sleeves.
Yes, and hopefully at some point we get to cube in person, potentially sometime in the future.
Yeah. The cube itself also had a lot of different changes. I see you changed the Arcanine line into Camerupt and the Medicham line into Hariyama.
Yes, I did both of those. The Arcanine line has always been a little bit of a struggle for me to balance.
All of us.
Because, because it is just a very efficient attacker that can also just do a ton of damage. So basically, anytime I would try to bump up things to help the Blaziken line, the Arcanine line would just get too good. For a while, I had an Arcanine that, if it had fire energy attached, it had no weakness, which really didn't.
Yeah, but, that card is unbalanced for Gen 3 gameplay. That card is so good. Does so much damage for 2 energy, I think. No weakness. Yes. The base stats are so high, and keeping the theme. You got Camerupt, 4 Gen 3 cards here, some kind of all-stars on Team Magma's Camerupt, and the Camerupt from Deoxys that never did anything except break RSPK in the last few years.
So, I wasn't actually aware that it broke RSPK.
Yes.
What does it do for that?
The tier S archetype in RSPK is Camler nowadays, and because you need stuff to do that is not power-based, you want colorless energy attackers, and you want ways to recur energy from the discard. Split Bomb is just a bananas good attack because you can play around POW and Rocket Admin. And the craziest thing, Nummo, pretty dang good with the Kindle attack because it's 1 fire, you discard 1 from Nummo and 1 from your opponent. So you have energy removal and then energy recursion on the same line. So tier S archetype Camler in RSPK.
Well, we will definitely see how that line goes in my cube. I will watch that camera up a little more closely. It did actually get second at the last in-person draft of the cube that I did this weekend after the updates. It was Hariyama with just that one camera up in there as well to just act as energy recovery. That was my one loss whenever I played. I was playing Shiftry, so I didn't have a good way to account for the weakness to fighting there. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting and can really add some things to lots of other decks. I always try to fit in some utility Pokemon in each of the stage 1 lines if possible, which that's not so much the case with the Hariyama line. I just think that Hariyama overall, I think it's a more well fleshed out line than what Medicham was. Medicham EX was very good, but then all the other Medichams just were kind of lacking, and nobody ever really played them. So I was I need to find a line where people get more use out of it. So I think there's some good Hariyamas that do some interesting things. There's the one that takes 20 less damage and does 20 more damage whenever you're behind on prizes, which is definitely an interesting mechanic. As well as Hariyama EX can lock stadiums into play, which is an interesting thing because I do have some stadiums that could do some interesting things with that.
Putting support on your stage 1 fighting line is always super hard. Either the line is full support, like a Clado line, or it's just one to punch down everything in its path, which is what Hariyama does really well. And Hariyama EX is something you never want to see on the other side of the field. Like 2 for 40, pretty decent attack, and then discard a card from your hand. It's kind of the worst feeling in the world. You have one supporter. If they hit it, you're kind of done. And if they don't, you'll play the game. The card is good enough to hold the ground, hold the fort, lock a stadium. Card an all-star in our SPK cube, so I'm sure it's gonna be very annoying in your cube as well. And the good side of annoying, not the bad one, of course. And just Hariyama, super good. Yeah,
because I played it in an online test as well, and I went up against Willie, who got all of the Latios and Latios in his draft. So I didn't have a way to block resistance, so I was just not able to hit through because they were all resistant to me. So there's counters.
Of course.
So I feel like it's not too OP.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of cube, right? Some lines kind of suck against the other, and that's how like the cube kind of naturally works itself. So really cool way to see. And
the third line that I actually swapped out was I swapped out Ariados for Muck.
Oh, that's true. Ariados used to be in the cube. I thought that Muck came in before, but people from the server might know I am a Muck aficionado, so I am stoked to draft Muck in this cube.
Well, that's good, because so nobody has actually drafted it yet in the 2 times that I've played, or at least nobody's played it.
They don't know the power of turn 2 Poison Ring. No powers to you anymore. And then Dark Muck, just a very underrated attacker in my opinion. Very splashable, has a DC cost there, decent attack, a very annoying power, and just 2 for 10 burn poison. If you're playing like oh my god, I'm an aggro Yax, I'm so big, I'm never gonna die. Okay, you're burned and poisoned. Good luck.
Yeah. I think it's a cool line. Like I thought that Ariados was like interesting, but it was never quite like, it just needed more external support to really be good, and it just wasn't really there. So it never became too successful, too low of HP, and the line didn't have any X, so it didn't have like a big bulky attacker like the other stage one lines did. So that's why I thought that like Muck with the EX especially, like at least you have some bulk there for when you need it.
I remember the Ariados, like they were playable. I remember losing against Slight at some point playing a poison / Ariados deck.
He was the one person that actually like made it good, but nobody else was able to do it that I saw.
Yeah, you had to force it, and I think it had Verbank in the past, maybe?
Yes, it did have Verbank, although I cut the Verbank because that made Cradley too good.
I distinctly remember Mike saying he had an unbeatable deck. He put a Hard Charm on I don't even remember the set. It was a Bronzong that attacked and then lowered the damage it did. He put like 2 or 3 special metals. I went Lure Poison, and he went, okay, I scoop. Because you can't win against poison. I'm glad it's out, and I'm really glad that Muck is in. I just wish that people played that line more, because I think it is still underappreciated.
It could have had some success. It was just everybody saw it and thought, it's just kind of weak, even though it wasn't necessarily.
Yeah, they are absolutely wrong. And I guess the third big change you made to the cube is now everyone has access to the full dark and metal special lines directly on their pool, right? So you don't need to draft the special metals or special darks.
Yes, now they have been pulled out, so you get 4 special metal, 4 special dark, 4 dark metal energy, which are just special energy that provide both dark and metal, and then 4 react energy, because there's enough stuff in the cube now that uses React. I think that could be good, especially although with Arcanine EX gone, especially I think React Energy is okay to give out for free.
And usually, the people don't care about React in the draft itself, but they are really good if you have like the right engines in the cube. I see you don't have the. Oh no, you do have the React Shift Delcatty. So yeah, that
yes, I did add that.
Yeah, sometimes you can just play React and like the reactive shift just as a stage 1 energy jump. It's pretty good. And lately, the Aggron from Legend Maker also has been doing some work in low power. They know that 3 for 70 is pretty damn good. And with a very good second attack, that card is just very, very, very good. And
especially on metal where you can be bulky on a 1 prizer.
Yeah, you just want to attack with that thing as many times as possible, finish with some sniperonis and leave it to death. Well, it did its work.
And as part of that, I also removed the basic metal and dark, so you can no longer get basic metal and dark energy in the cube. You can only use the special. So I'm gonna see how that balances out. I think it'll work well, because I mean, I guess that's what you do with the RSPK as well, and it's more true to like the Gen 3 Pokemon. I of course removed Darkrai level X now, so some people are very happy about that.
Yeah, losing to the coin flips on Darkrai level X never feels good, and that card doesn't do anything if you only have specials, so probably a good thing to remove. I'm pretty sure that the cube is in a very good spot in balance, even with its own like kinks and weird cards like the Kukuis and all of that, but I'm always super stoked to play the Slowercube, so looking forward to the next time we play this.
I need to get better about like pushing it on the server to try to get it in like team showdowns and cube leagues again, because I haven't been all that active as far as like trying to promote it recently.
One last thing, I don't know if it was in the last time I played this cube, maybe it's newer, or maybe I never paid attention to it. There are so many more fossils than I remember. Are those new?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. So in I guess one of the major changes that I had made middle of last year was I bumped up the cube to 672 instead of 624, and I added evolutions. And the evolution EXs were way too good.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no.
So I have since cut those, and I decided to try adding in a mysterious fossil line. So I have like smaller lines of Aerodactyl, Kabutops, and Omastar in there, and I'm gonna see how that goes. I think it'll be interesting to have like a dedicated attacking colorless line, because I didn't have for stage 1s, because I just had Delcatty and Porygon before, whereas now like I actually have a stage 1 colorless line that can be a viable attacker.
I really like that, because you already have like the Strange Caves, the Holland Fossil type of cards in the cube. You don't need to add anything else to make the fossils work, because they are already there because of course, Armaldo and Credilli. 2 lines that I don't ever see coming out of the cube. I think that they are...
No, they're staying in there.
Yeah.
Along with Aggron, they're staying in there forever.
Yeah, the cube might be unbalanced, but those are not coming out. I like that. And really fun to see the Mysterious Fossils lines, because they are kind of weird. So I'm looking forward to see some fossils not evolving from Claw Fossil or Mysterious Fossil, of course, going from Life Explosion directly into play, as they usually do in this cube.
Yep. Yeah, well, yeah, you could. I mean, with Life Explosion, between Life Explosion, Holland Fossil, and the Strange Cave, you have plenty of ways to get all your fossils into play. Aerodactyl EX is bringing in Tool Lock.
Yeah.
No tool.
This is Focus Band and Expert Belt Cube, and also, of course, Sensation Crystal. So, it's not you're not gonna stop the bad tools from working. You're just gonna stop the good ones. So that card rises to a very good tech in most decks if you didn't draft any of the good ones.
Yeah, right now the biggest like the only real thing that I'm watching for balance is how Metal Link's Bronzong does with guaranteed for special metal energy.
Yeah.
That may be something that has to change, but for right now, it hasn't seemed overly busted. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, just
that may end up getting swapped out for another Bronzong.
Just call Mike Gibbs and he will stress test the Bronzong for you, guaranteed. He always opens it and forces it, so
yes.
That's a definitive way to know if that line is well balanced. And yep. I think nobody would mind like the aggro line being the best anyway. So
I mean I wouldn't.
Yeah. It's on the sleeves.
Although I don't want it to be too broken though. Like we can't have too much favoritism.
Well, I think that's most of the things we had to talk about Slowercube. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Some shout outs or some cube lessons? Anything?
Well, I guess I just really appreciate everyone that's played my cube over the years and given feedback on it, and all the help that I've gotten from all the people on the cube server, like input into what changes need to be made. It's been fun over the years getting to hang out, especially during COVID. It was during lockdowns. It was great to have the server, to have just something to do online while we were all stuck indoors.
Thank you for listening to the Cube Radio. On the next episode, Apsy reviews his Gen 7 All-Stars deck on his induction to the Cube League Hall of Fame. We'll see you on the next one.